Well, there are signs of support and that people are taking the virus crisis seriously. There were plenty of signs over the weekend that people are not. Governor Kate Brown heard from the mayors of 25 Oregon cities, urging her to do more to force people into social distancing. They were frustrated. She is too. And so she issued an executive order tightening the restrictions. Her stay-at-home order means stay at home as much as possible. Non-essential gatherings are banned outside the home and workplace, and the family you live with does not count. You can go outside, but you have to keep 6 feet apart. Walking, running, it's all okay if you keep your distance. Basketball, probably not. The order stays in effect until the governor says so. Those who violate it will likely be warned at first, but could face up to 30 days in jail and a $1,200 fine. Governor Brown also ordered several types of businesses to close because of the close contact between people. They include malls, fitness studios and gyms, barbershops, hair salons and nail salons, state parks and campgrounds, theaters, arcades, bowling alleys, and museums. The order also keeps some businesses open, including grocery stores, banks, pharmacies, gas stations, along with bars and restaurants, which can do takeout or delivery orders.
So a lot to digest there, but basically, if there's a business where people cannot stay apart as they're doing their work, they need to shut down. Construction sites, for example, I think those are okay because generally people are kind of spaced apart. Warehouses, the same thing. So we'll all get a little bit more used to this as the days go on. But Kristen, the governor said she did not want to clamp down 100% on the state because she's trying to keep people working and she's trying to protect employees and businesses. Back to you.